As you said, Shmuel, it's not a rara speech, and I'm not going to be anywhere near Michelle Bachman. But it's not dark enough yet, and we are still in the Memorial Day. And you mentioned to me, Shmuel, my friends that were killed in the war. And I wasn't planning to talk about it at all, but I'll tell you a secret that I never shared with you, because it's combining with this day. For 3 times, my life were given to me as a present in the army. And I'll tell you about the first time. The first time was in the First Lebanon War. I just finished, I become an officer in the army, and I trained young soldiers in Israel. And just a week and a half before the war started, the First Lebanon War, I got married. And so I got a few days of vacation. And just as I left the battalion, the war started. And another officer who came instead of me took those soldiers that I trained to the war. And my platoon had 2 war carriers. Half of the platoon in one, and half in the other. And of course, when the war started, I ran back trying to catch my soldiers, but they were already inside Lebanon. And suddenly I hear in the radio the name of one of my soldiers as a soldier that got killed. One of the soldiers that I trained, the young soldiers. So what could I do? I went to Har HaMenucha, to Har Herzl. I wanted to be at his funeral. And when I came to the funeral, I realized that I came to the funeral of half of my platoon, because it was not only him, a Syrian helicopter shot a missile and actually hit one of these soldier carrier, and half of my platoon were killed. So since then, every year, and of course there are many other friends and soldiers that I knew that got killed in the war, but since that happened, I remember these young soldiers every year at these days. And in another 2 times, God gave me my life as a present. Once in Shechem, once in Gaza. Also in Shechem, I just finished my 30 days of Miluim, and in the same jeep that I rode in Shechem for 30 days, a night after, was burnt with a Molotov cocktail, and the officer that came instead of me got killed. And I live in a very strong feeling of, I have my credit, my line of credit up there, and as long as I'm doing what I should, I assume I'm still here. Anyhow, so now into what I was planning to speak about tonight. When we're talking about Manhigut Yehudit, Jewish leadership, what exactly are we talking about? Many times people ask you, when you're talking about Jewish state, what is this Jewish state that you're talking about? I think the point is a free Jewish a state of liberty, that being a light to the nation, not just sitting among, not just a place among the nation, but a state that is a light to the nation under the wings of God. This is the concept of a Jewish state. If you don't understand that, you have just another state, then you're coming to a point where people are starting to ask themselves, what do we need it for? And I'm talking about all circles of life, just as you saw in the movie. It's not just settlements. It's not just Jerusalem. It's every circle. It's in health. It's in the economy. How to have a Jewish economy. A Jewish way that will be light to the nation. Of course, how to develop a Jewish culture, a real Jewish culture in the land of Israel. A light to the nation. A state that the whole world is looking at as a symbol of how a modern state should live. But tonight I want to talk about one aspect, one and only aspect. I want to talk about the peace plan. The peace plan that a Jewish leadership in the state of Israel should have. The basic idea of all peace plans that we had until today was land for peace, right? Land for peace. Now think about it for a second. The concept of land for peace is a well-known concept. The concept of land for peace means that the side that won the war gets the land, and the side that lost the war gets the peace, right? I mean, it's always like that, right? I mean, the strong guy is the one who have the peace to give, right? I think Israel is the only example in history where it's reverse. The one who won the war supposed to give land, and the one that's lost the war supposed to give peace. What's going on here? Who won the war in 1967? Who won the 6 days war? Israel? Yeah. Then why are we giving land and not peace? Good question, no? You know, I remember once having a patrol with my platoon. It was in Miluim already. It was a long time ago. Along the Jordanian border. Okay? We were doing Miluim, walking all night back and forth along the border to see that no terrorists coming from the other side, crossing the Jordan River, coming to Israel. One night, actually it was very close to the morning already, I turned to my sergeant and I asked him, tell me something, who won the war? So he wasn't sure he hears well. He thought maybe I became crazy after all these nights. He said, Feiglin, what are you talking about? Who won the war? Which war? The 6 days war. Who won the war? Feiglin, leave me alone. I'm asking you. I'm giving you an order. Who won the war? He said, we did. So I asked him, then tell me why the fence and all the barbed wires and the minefields are on our side of the river. The one who won the war should feel secure. The one who lost the war should have fences and barbed wire and minefields. Why is it all on our side? Forget it. I don't remember what he said. I don't remember what I told him. But the bottom line is that yes, our heroes, our soldiers, won heroically the battlefields, but we never won the war. We never won one war. And you know why? Because the real war is not between us and the Arabs. The real war is between the Jews and themselves. The real war is between Judaism, the Jewish identity, and the Israeli identity. I tried to explain that a little bit in the movie. You see, the Zionist idea was, when Herzl saw what happened to Dreyfus and understood that assimilation is not going to help. You're not going to solve the Jewish problem with assimilation. Even Dreyfus, who was an assimilated Jew, brought to trial. It was pure anti-Semitism. He understood pure assimilation is not going to solve the problem. And then he said we should all go and have our own state when we'll be like the rest of the nations and have our national state. The anti-Semitism will be gone. The reason, the Jewish problem is because we're not having our state. Because we are not like all the nations that having their own state. In another word, the basic idea was let's be a nation like all the nation. Let's find our place among the nation. That is the basic concept of Zionism, our place among the nation. Sounds familiar? Okay. And you know what? We succeeded. Zionism succeeded. We got our place among the nation. But they don't recognize us. Anti-Semitism continues. So on one hand, we try to be a nation like all the nations, create a new nation named Israelis. A new identity that will come instead of the Jewish identity and not above the Jewish identity. That will not grow from the Jewish identity, but will come instead of it. And these two dreams, the dream of the Israeli dream and the Jewish dream, are fighting inside Israel all the time. It's not a fight between the Jews and the Arabs. It's a fight between the Jews and themselves. And excuse me for being a little bit complicated. I told you it's not going to be a rah-rah speech. But whoever will listen very carefully tonight will come out of here tonight really understanding what's going on in Israel. We cannot win the Arabs because we need them. We need them in order to build this new Israeli identity. Let's just assume that all the Knesset members will be only Jewish. Then it will be a Jewish Knesset, not an Israeli Knesset. We need to let Azmi Bishara or any other Knesset member, okay, have the ability to be Israeli. If an Arab cannot be Israeli, if only Jewish can be Israeli, then the whole concept, the whole Zionist dream failed. The Israeli needs the Arab to forget, so he'll be able to forget that he's Jewish. And that's why he has to make peace with the Arab. Let's assume that Israel will wipe out all the Arabs. There will be no more wars anymore with the Arabs. No more enemies. We'll be left alone. With who? With ourselves. With our Jewish identity. We'll be Jews again. No. That cannot be. It sounds crazy. It sounds like kind of conspiracy, what I'm just saying. I'm saying it for many years. I'm writing about it for many years. But still, it sounds like, what are you talking about? Well, 2 months ago, Dr. Ron Pundak, who was the major architect of the Oslo Agreement, came out with an incredible sentence. And he said the following. He explained what was the idea behind the Oslo Agreement. And he said the following. I'll say it in Hebrew first, in his words. Hashalom eino hamatara. The peace was not the target, was not the goal. המטרה היא ישראליזציה של המדינה במקום ייהוד שלה. The goal was, and still is, Israelism of the state of Israel instead of Judaism of the state of Israel. Now this is not from my mouth. This is from the mouth of the major architect of the Oslo Agreement. By the way, he died a few weeks later. So you cannot say we didn't understand him or anything that. I believe that he did what he had to, and said the truth, and died. So you see what happens over here? The Arabs realize that they're holding the golden key to this false identity that the Israelis tried to create. That key you cannot take away from them in wars. It doesn't matter that you won the wars, 6 Days War, Independent War. Of course we won all the battlefields. But they still have that key. They still have that key. And once they realize that we need them, we cannot win. And when you cannot win, the war never finishes. And when the war never finishes, the peace never starts. That's why we don't have peace in the Middle East. Not because we did not give away territories. We don't have peace in the Middle East because we never made peace with our own identity. And this is exactly the message of Manhigut Yehudit, Jewish leadership. When Israel will be led by Jewish leadership, we will not need the Arabs to build our identity. We will not need them at all. When we will not need them, the achievements of the 6 Days War will become a real victory. When we'll have that real victory, we'll have peace. So, what is the peace plan of Manhigut Yehudit? And you are the first ones to hear that. We're going to come out with this plan in details in the coming few months. And whether people like it or not in Israel, that is going to be the real peace plan in Israel. Stage one, there are 5 stages. Stage one is to have our full sovereignty in every square inch where the Israeli soldiers are standing. Our full sovereignty between the Jordan River, our full sovereignty between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean. The land of Israel and Jerusalem belongs only to the people of Israel. There is no other national sovereignty on the land of Israel. And there's no other religion sovereignty in the land of Israel. No Muslim sovereignty of any kind on the Temple Mount or anywhere else. any kind of Christian sovereignty on Mount Zion. It's all going to be Israeli sovereignty, period. And when I'm talking about Israeli sovereignty, I'm talking about an Israeli police station in every Arab village in Judea and Samaria. No other forces. Nothing. Second stage. That, of course, means that we have to take away all the weapons and throw away all those terrorists that you brought from Tunisia and so on, in Oslo and so on. The second stage is giving those people who are not Jewish, the Arabs approximately, that wish to stay in Israel, a permanent permission to stay, a resident permission, giving them all the human rights, but not the civilian rights. There's a difference between human rights and civilian rights. Human rights are given to us by God. Human rights we cannot take away from nobody. We cannot take away nobody's home. Those who accept our full sovereignty, of course. I'm talking about those who accept and loyal to the state of Israel as the Jewish state, not having any kind of wish or expressing any kind of wish to have their sovereignty on our homeland. They deserve their human rights. Nothing of what we did to our own brothers and sisters in Gush Katif we cannot do to them. However, civilian rights are not given by God, are given by states that are made by people, and it's given according to the interest of the states. For example, the United States don't give full civilian rights to millions of its citizens. There are millions of Americans that Obama is their president, but they cannot vote for him. In Puerto Rico, for example, in the Guam Island and other places. It's the same play. It's the same in Hong Kong. It's the same thing in Czechia, Latvia. In Latvia, who is a member of the European Union, 15% of the citizens cannot vote. Having their full human rights, but not having their full citizen rights. There's a difference between the two. We should start understand that. The reason why the United States of America is not an apartheid state is not because everybody can vote. It's because a Puerto Rican that will go on a bus will never turn down because of the color of his skin. They're getting us, the left and John Kerry and others, getting us mixed up over here. We should realize what the truth is. Definitely Israel, that were attacked by those Arabs who live in Judea and Samaria, should have the right to decide who it's giving citizenship and who's not. So that's the second stage. The third stage is to start invest the money that being invested in this so-called peace process in urging the Arabs to leave. And you know how much the Oslo process cost us till today? You will not believe. It cost almost trillion shekel in the last 20 years. Israel is spending every year 11.4% of its income, on what? On barbed wires, on cash money that goes back straight to Gaza, on digging Sderot down, and defending Sderot from the missiles and so on. Having guards in every coffee shop or a bank, not against robbers, against terrorists. That's the result of the Oslo process. That money, not, by the way, you know how much money we're getting from the United States? 3%. 3% we're getting from America, which we don't need. As Michelle said, we should give up on that. But so we take that money that only causes harm to our economy and to our defense forces. We take the money from the United States, and on the other hand, spending 11% on that peace process that brings only bloodshed. That money should be spent to help these 1.7 million Arabs. That's all. That's all they are. 1.7 million Arabs in Judea and Samaria find their future in a better place, not in the homeland of the Jews. Besides the fact of flourishing the land and bringing more Jews, solve the problem of the housing prices that will never be solved before we do that simple thing. It should not be done with government's money, by the way. It should be done by giving the land to the people. We're talking about free state. Give the land in Israel, 93% of the land belongs to the government, to Minhal Mekarke'ei Israel, as they call it. It's crazy. How did they develop America? How did they develop Australia? How did they develop all the real free states in the past? They gave the land to the people. In Israel, and in a free Jewish state, it's exactly what the Torah obeys us to do. This is what we should do. Give the land to the people. The land of Israel belongs first of all to the people of Israel, and only then to the state of Israel. And the last thing is, of course, encourage the Jews to come to Israel. And I said from the stage of the Knesset, and I told the Prime Minister, and I'll say it again and again, Israel should be ready now for a 1 million Jews, 1.5 million Jews that will be coming in the coming 5 until 10 years. A wave of Olim Chadashim, Jewish immigration, is expected. We see what happens now in Ukraine. We see what happens in France. Don't think that here the earth is not shaking. It is. The place of every Jew, the house, the home of every Jew is in Eretz Yisrael. There's room for everybody, and everybody will come. And the first one that should come is our brother, Jonathan Pollard. You know, I met this morning with Michelle Bachman for an hour and a half almost. We had a very long discussion. And obviously, we both believe in God. And she's right. Those who blessed you will be blessed, and those who cursed you will be cursed. She's absolutely right. And I told Michelle, and I know that she agreed, she said it here. I told her, you know, we are the children of God. Banim atem la'Hashem Elokeichem. One of the best, if not the best child of God, is a child that sacrificed already 30 years of his life for his brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael. I believe that this land, United States of America, will never recover, will never go back to itself as long as this favorite child of God is still in prison here in America. So I call the United States of America to free Jonathan Pollard. And I call all the Jews here in this room, here in America, and in the entire world to come back to Israel, to come back to our homeland. As you see, we are going back to ourselves. We're going to be led by Jewish leadership. You're going to have a pride Jewish state. You're going to develop yourself with your brothers and sisters. You're going to have your children, you're going to have your family grow in a pride, peaceful, because this will lead to peace. Peaceful Israel when you come. L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim habnuya. Thank you very much.